Suicide Squad Isekai has people feeling some kind of way. There is much to discuss. There are so many angles that you can come at this, so let's try and unpack a bunch of different variables. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and today we're going to be looking at episodes 2 and 3. We already looked at episode 1 in a prior video, and in that video we also took a look at the production history behind the series to explain some of the choices that were made in terms of character choice, presentation, tone, and the like. Basically, the goal of the series is to be an entry point to people who are new to either the Isekai genre or to DC characters. It's trying to hit both fronts, the Japanese audience introducing them to some of these characters, and then on the Western front introducing them to the Isekai genre. Although there's some things one can discuss when it comes to demographics and who is being targeted and whether or not that's going to land or not. Since many of this may initially appeal to, may be familiar with one or both of those things. The series had a release in the US and some other countries first on June 27th, dropping the first 3 episodes on Hulu and Max. They really do hope that you watch all of these episodes together in a chunk because they pair well. They're a good group. If you watch them individually, it's a different experience. That's what I did at first. 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3 is a chunk, and it's very different. Some of the pacing flaws and the like are more obvious if you watch them one at a time, whereas together, they feel like they flow a bit stronger. It's been very interesting looking at this, from my own response to it to other people's response to it, and I'm excited to talk about it. As always, before we get deep into these, spoilers, because we're just going to be discussing a whole bunch of things, and so spoilers may come up. So if you don't want to know anything, it's not the video for you. Forewarned is forearmed. At the end of episode 1, it left off with the squad being captured. The squad at that point, Harley Quinn, Peacemaker, Deadshot, King Shark, Clayface. Clayface is the outlier character and the one who is going to activate some questions, and they are incredibly valid. It's a question that I had but did not bring up because this series is very much looking like you're not supposed to go too in-depth with certain deep lore questions, even though this is not a deep lore question, which is, can Clayface have a bomb in his neck? Is that feasible? Possible? Wouldn't he just be able to phase on out of it? Well, he has one, or does he? Dun dun dun. Maybe that's a mystery. But it is something that people are thinking about. And depending upon your familiarity with these characters and their lore, there are going to be some moments that could be off-putting or take you out of it. You just have a bit of a record scratch moment. One of those for me was when Rick Flag, who shows up in episode 2, who's basically there to give some exposition as to what's going on, he's clearly read everybody's files, so he's the person who can explain who the people are. But when he introduces Harley Quinn...
And you are Harley Quinn, Gotham's princess of crime, Joker's only love.
Deadshot doesn't know who she is, which does not track at all given the character's history in Gotham. If you're familiar with the character's comic book history or even the movie history, he would know who she was. It's little things like that that can for some people add up and chip away at their enjoyment of the series, if they are enjoying it. While others will take this as its own work and not mind such things so much, it varies. I was initially going to do episodes 2 and 3 separately, but really you can just lump them together because this series, not a lot happens per episode. It's very cookie cutter in its approach to things. So episode 2 is the imprisoned episode where the characters also manage to take over the prison.
Show me your fighting spirit! Let it out!
But that episode is also the one where we get a bit more lore around the fantasy world. It's very much a feudal magical realism type place, and one of the more interesting elements of the show is seeded, which is that people who come from the main world into this other world, their abilities change. You see this predominantly through Clayface, but you're also going to see it with some others.
You telling me you haven't felt different here? Like something changed after we came to this world? Because I've been feeling like some kind of magic power is flowing through me.
This is also the episode where they introduce the concept that this is not the first Suicide Squad to enter into this world. They play a lot with the phrasing of this wasn't the first task force, so it's first it seems like a cute subtle flirting with Task Force X.
I led a squad that was tasked with making first contact.
But then they do a full-on, are we some kind of Suicide Squad redo?
What, we some kind of
Suicide Squad.
This series does borrow heavily from both Suicide Squad films. It's to the point where at times watching it, I fall into questioning what would it have been like if this series had somehow been able to come out closer to the release of the Suicide Squad. Also, some of the saturation or oversaturation that some feel with Isekai may not have been quite as strong. Because a lot of the complaints you hear about this show or concept coming from a variety of angles is burnout. You can encompass it as burnout. Some people are burnt out with the squad. One comment I kept seeing was stop trying to make the Suicide Squad happen, that they just keep adapting them. They won't stop. Please stop. Another I saw was the idea that Isekai are overdone and that they're bland already and please stop.
Yeah, an isekai!
Now, as you can see, I've segued into some other things because it's very easy to pull away from the episodes themselves, because one of the things about this series is that while it is having fun with the characters and placing them inside of this situation, it is largely quite generic if you're familiar with the characters and the tropes. The reason why they're there is just vaguely given so far as natural resources, although that may be different because, again, people's powers are changing, so maybe it's something else, maybe there's some deeper level. With that being said, episodes 2 and 3 do manage to distinguish the characters a bit more, build them out a little bit, and give some of them a bit more of a time to shine.
Nanaway, stand down!
Nanaway?
Yeah, that's his actual name.
Clayface becomes a lot more distinct in his narcissistic main character syndrome persona. He's also there to make comments about the plot and the way things are moving. Some of those are meta references to explain what isekai is. There does seem to be a genuine concern that people don't know.
It's also typical in these isekai stories for the hero from the real world to help the local princess and ultimately fall in love.
It's also going to be a running joke for him, commenting on plot points that some may find silly or convenient. So that should be a way to kind of hand wave them away, and that's going to be a mileage may vary moment for some people.
We can understand each other. Brilliant! What a convenient plot point.
Peacemaker is very much staying in the range you've seen in the movies and his own series. Harley Quinn is very much still the focal and central point, which for some is going to be a turn on, for others a turn off.
The sad tale of poor Harleen Quinn's out before she woke up.
Harley Quinn as a character in general is one that some feel is just overexposed. And if that is the case, this series is not going to do anything to alter that, because there's a lot of focus on her backstory, her feelings. There's quite clearly an interest in foregrounding her. As the episodes continue, you get a lot more banter and jokes. There is a lot of humor in this.
I don't want to lose any more hair!
As mentioned in the first video, the director wants it to have a more light-hearted tone. And so because of that, we're entering the realm of whether or not the character's humor lands or not for you can determine some of your enjoyment. The squad in general are very sassy and anti-authority. And for me, I found that as that went on, it became more on the annoying side and less on the endearing side. But again, that's gonna vary. They do a lot of playing with the language barrier for a little bit, that the characters can't understand each other right away, and that part is interesting, but it's very quickly done away with by episode 3. Episode 3 sees our hero as being enlisted to help with one side of the war that's happening inside of this realm, as we also learn that the reason the other side is starting to get an advantage is because they are being aided by the first squad who went in. And there's a bit of a mystery there as to who's on it, who's leading it. Some people have already placed their bets on who the Emperor is. Place yours down below. The idea of these outsiders coming and influencing this realm, while not new, is one of the more interesting elements. They're also trying to play up the fact that Fiona, the princess of this realm, has some kind of connection, attraction, something to Harley Quinn. She just saw her and had a who's that girl kind of moment.
In our favor. Is that so?
Yes. They're an eccentric bunch, both in speech and appearance.
She's the person who really pushes for them to be brought to them and see if they can do anything for the realm. So there's going to be some deeper connection there. The other thing going on through all of this is that the squad have bombs in their neck, including Clayface somehow. And they're going to explode.
Hey, nutjob, how much time we got left anyway?
Well, let's see. We have exactly 30 hours as of right this moment.
But there's not really much tension around that. The show tries, it references it, it brings it up, it has characters talk about it, but it never really feels like there's any tension or hurry or rush. Very much the focus is more on the set piece spectacles of the ultra violence when they do fight, even though it's not that violent, it's just they spray a lot of blood everywhere. This series is rated TV MA. But it's one of those mature ratings where it feels a bit like it has to reach for it sometimes in terms of the amount of swearing or the gore. It doesn't feel as much as it's coming by it honestly, and more that it feels like it needs to be there because they're the Suicide Squad, or those elements need to be added to give it that mature rating. It wouldn't make much of a difference if it was lowered a bit and those things weren't there. They're not really adding to or enhancing the experience. A lot of this really feels like it will land better for people who are less familiar with the Suicide Squad, the genre, or both. If its goal is to be an entry point, I think it could succeed very well on that front, or if it's just meant to be light, more popcorny fare. Something that one's just meant to kind of engage with on a more surface level and not necessarily get very deep about lore critiques or how they're playing with certain genre and narrative tropes. It's more meant to be just a let it happen. And that's gonna land for some and not for others. There are some aspects where it tries to be a bit creative. They changed the art style a bit for the Deadshot flashback. That section with Deadshot and Ratcatcher remembering their history together feels like it goes on for quite a while. There are some issues with the pacing, which, as mentioned, if you watch all three together, don't come up in the same way as if you watch one by one. If you watch one by one, you'll notice that there are certain scenes that are held for a decent amount of time where it feels like they should be cut sooner. In episode 2, one of those scenes is Clayface trying to liaise with the other members of the prison, which just keeps going and going. And then you have the flashback that happens episode 3 that very much stops the episode.
This is the only stuff that Rat can really get into. He's a freaky dude who's into some freaky shit, okay? Help the guy out. Come on. I want to nap.
As much as some of it was funny, it really didn't need to be that long to accomplish its goal, which was just to show that Deadshot thought that him and Ratcatcher were friends, but actually he was a jerk and Ratcatcher doesn't like him. The more interesting aspects of this series that could be drawn out of the political elements or some of the building of the other world, they're so far more in the background, and it's more a series of set pieces and what feel like little character vignette moments to highlight them. So with all of this said, I can see why this series is getting such a wide range of reactions. It's the kind of thing that I can see some people really liking, some being totally ambivalent to, and others really disliking. Just because if you're a big lore head who knows a lot about these characters and is going and looking for something like that, this series isn't necessarily going to give it to you. If you're someone who's feeling burnt out with the squad or the isekai genre, this probably isn't going to do anything to change that. If you're someone who likes these characters and is more looking for just a ride in this genre and to see what they do with it, this might be more up your alley. If you're someone who's new to anime, I'm not sure how this will land or not. The base assumption that isekai or going to another world is something that is new or revolutionary for a Western audience in animation just is not the case. So those elements of being transported to another world that's a fantasy realm, they're not going to do as much of the lifting on that front as it appears that the production staff seems to hope that they do. However, for me personally, I can say I'm going to be there for episode 4. There's been enough intrigue presented that I'm just curious as to how it's going to play out, which characters they're going to introduce, and if they're going to pull upon any relationship threads that surprise me. Is this show going to suddenly go, whoa, Harley Deadshot, we're doing it. Remember the New 52 where she made Deadshot wear the Joker's face? That was a thing that happened. Or are we gonna go real deep and pull out that Rick Flag Harley thing that happened that they also flirted with in the Suicide Squad? And the Deadshot one from the first suffixless Suicide Squad. We'll see how things go. So far the relationships are not all that deep, time recording. A lot of this is very surface. For example, Harley Quinn is meant to have this rivalry with Katana because they fought and she's the one who captured her, but it's more that you know this on an intellectual level as a viewer than feel it really connectively or emotionally. Despite everything we've discussed, how much fun this series is having with itself, it's drawing me in, and I'm also having a lot of fun with it, while acknowledging its shortcomings and where it could fall flat for some. Also, for every moment I do enjoy, it is balanced by a moment of pure cringe.
That's the guy.
Yeah, his name's Ratcatcher. He happens to be one of my very few good homies.
But I don't know, there's something about the way that it's embracing these characters and trying to foreground them that it's endearing to me. It's definitely a very easy light watch. The time flies. The intro and the outro have some nice music. The dance sequence is fun. Very classic anime outro meets Peacemaker. So I've seen a variety of reactions for this. Some people love it. Some people, some people, no. Since these 3 episodes went so well together, I'm curious if the entire season overall is going to have a similar experience. It remains to be seen. Time for recording. All of these are just my thoughts, and I want to hear yours. Please put them down below. I'm very much enjoying hearing them. It's also just nice to be able to discuss and talk about this, bounce what we're feeling off of each other. I don't know why I'm wearing a Zatanna top for this video, but it happened. I guess I felt it was magical. Please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to spend discussing comics or comic adjacent things with me. I appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.